Meetings often suck, but at the end of the day, if you are looking to develop a high performance team, that is one of the most important tools you have at your disposal. So in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how I run effective one-on-one meetings to help my team continue to grow and develop that do not suck. My name is Mark Fisher from businessforunicorns.com, and I'm really excited to share this content with you because over the years, I've really worked to refine the system, and I think we've really found something that's really working for us incredibly well at Mark Fisher Fitness. The one that I use is with my leadership team. This is our fitness director, our director of sales, and our general manager / operations director. Now, if you have a smaller team, you'll still be able to utilize a lot of this, but understand that you're gonna need to fashion this because if you're working with a trainer that's on the floor, let's call it 20 to 25 hours per week, I think this framework will still work for you, but you're gonna tighten all of these things up because you're not likely, for instance, as you'll see in a moment, come in with a big list of issues and things you need to solve or opportunities you're going to consider taking action on. This exact same system, however, you will be able to rip off and use precisely if you take my advice and you make the most important hire for your training gym and get the sous chef. If you want to check out that video, go in the description box right now and click the link and you'll find out more context for why this is the most important hire for a training gym if you really want personal freedom. So the 4 steps, the 4 pieces to how I run our one-on-ones are metrics, check-in items, to-dos, and issues. So let's start with metrics. As an example, when I meet with my director of possibilities, we look through the sales and marketing scorecard. Now, this is not the top level things where we might just look at very high level stuff like new members, conversion percentage, etc. We're gonna look through all the metrics and understand how are the individual people doing as salespeople. We're gonna look at how many people opted in the email newsletter. We're gonna look at all the metrics. After we do our metrics review, then we do what I like to call our check-ins. And check-ins can vary wildly based on the individual and based on what it is that we're focusing on in a given quarter or a given moment in their professional development. So usually this is gonna start with achievements. And the reason this is so important is we all have to train our brains to focus on what's going well. So the first thing I wanna start with is what are some things you've gotten done that you're pumped about? Because it's human nature to focus on the gap, to focus on where we're not where we want to be yet. And that's all well and good. That's a lot of our job in a business, of course, is solving problems. And that is why it's so important to develop a discipline. And we bake this into the system. We have to start by talking about what are your wins? What are your achievements? Where are things going well? And that energy, that confidence informs the rest of the meeting. Pro tip for you, as the manager, a lot of your job is catching people doing things right. So it's a very powerful ritual, a practice to get into where you train your team members to share what's going well, here's what I've gotten done. It is a container that allows them in some cases to bring forth awesome things that they're doing that you might not even have known about. 2 things that we will tend to do with my leadership team as check-ins, one of which is education. One of their individual weekly metrics is how many hours have they spent on education. At MFF, we have a standard of 30 minutes per day, which is 2.5 hours per week, with the minimum, the quota being 2 hours per week. This is a great example of how we have to marry quantitative and qualitative things. The quantitative metric is how long are they spending on education? But the qualitative thing we have to dig into here, right? It's like, well, what are you learning? What's gonna change? How should the business change in regards to what you're learning? And if we go a couple of weeks and I'm getting answers that I might gently refer to as lame sauce, then I'm gonna gently push on them and I'm gonna help them orient how they're spending their time, what it is that they're working on, so that I know that their education pursuits are leading to actual changes in the business and their continued professional development. Now, another piece that's very specific to if you have a hand of the king that's responsible for managing other individuals, or in this situation, all 3 of these team members at MFF also oversee the work of other people, we do a management check-in where I wanna know how is your team doing, and importantly, how can I support you as their manager so you are helping develop them over time. This system is like fractals, it's turtles all the way down, which is to say that they run this same system, the same structure weekly with each of their direct reports. This particular part of the check-in often will elucidate maybe an issue that they're having, or maybe they're not getting a particular type of result or behavior or performance, and then I can train them and give them different tools, different techniques to help support them so they're growing not just as an employee who often has a functional role in the business, but as a leader that's multiplying and creating other leaders, creating other people that are performing at a high level. The third step is to-dos. So we write in the shared Google document where we keep all the stuff. And then what we do is during each meeting, we capture with initials and the to-do who is going to do what. And the expectation in most situations, unless otherwise stipulated, is going to be done by the next meeting. The way this flow works is we review the metrics, we do our check-ins, and then we review the to-dos to make sure everything is done, right? And if it's done, it gets deleted because we did it. We just have a moment of accountability as well as support, and we just make sure nothing falls off the radar. We will then capture throughout the rest of our conversation. As things come up, they'll go into the to-dos. And sometimes there are things that came up even in the check-in or the metrics that created an immediate action step of like, oh, you know what, we need to do this next week. Let's do this thing. So we are both using the to-dos to look to the previous week to make sure things are getting done, and we're using it as a depository to catch the action steps, the to-dos of what we expect to get done for the week ahead. And finally, we get to the main event. We use the term issues, which is similar to a book and a methodology I've referenced a lot here, EOS, Gino Wickman's Traction. And it's important to understand the issues, the way we're using it here refers to not just problems, but also opportunities and also things we just need to give each other a heads up on. Now, one thing that I think is very important is to be diligent about not using meetings for things that be done in an email. So oftentimes with just a quick heads up, a quick such and such, that doesn't always need to live here. So understand, in preparation for this meeting, all week long, each of us are putting our initial and the topic that we want to discuss when we get to the weekly meeting. And then the magic is, as we work through each of these items that we have listed on this list, we essentially delete them once they are solved. So we're constantly working on this list. It's never completely done, but it does allow us to really be disciplined to identify here's the most important things we're working on, and we want to use this time effectively, right? So I want to emphasize one more time, these are not things that can be shared easily in an email or voice text. These are things we have to solve together. Now, I want to give you one more bonus category. So we've already talked about the way this flow works. We look at the metrics, we check in on the things we always check in on every week, we review the to-dos, we solve the issues, and we also have another important bucket we call long-term issues. And very specifically, the way that we look at this, these are topics, again, these could be problems, they might be opportunities we want to leverage that we are not talking about this quarter. So this is not the list of every possible issue that exists in the world. These are specifically things that are long-term, which means we're not handling it now. We're not handling it till the beginning of the next quarter, which might be 3 months away. It's not in the next couple of weeks. And importantly, we do want to make sure we touch base about that because we think it's likely we will attempt to resolve this issue before 12 months have passed. So I have found that to be a useful template. Now, I would note briefly, and maybe I'll do a video on this if you're interested in what has also been valuable for these one-on-one check-ins because they happen every week. We do a more substantive quarterly check-in once per quarter where we do a round of checking in on what are the behaviors you'd like to start doing, do more of, behaviors you'd like to keep doing, behaviors you'd like to stop doing, do less of, and how can I, MFF, support you better. All right, friends, well, I hope you found that valuable. If you enjoyed this content, it would really mean a lot to me and help get the word out about this YouTube channel if you subscribe, like us, maybe even share friends with other training gym owners, because I am committed to helping training gym owners be more successful running their business. I love what I do. I love what we get to do and how we get to impact our world and our society. And I'm committed to doing everything I can to get you the best possible business skills. So thanks as always for tuning in. I will check you soon, where I will share more actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and of course, philosophy.